everyone, and welcome back to Got to Know. My name is Dr. Darla Gall, and I'm an endocrinologist. My current research is based in diabetes, and I'll be explaining this disease to 3 different levels, ranging from an elementary school student to a college student. I'm looking forward to speaking with everyone today. Hi, James. My name is Dr. Darla Gall. It's so great to meet you. How old are you?
Hi, Dr. Gall. I'm 8 years old. What kind of doctor are you?
I study all the processes that make your body work, including how your body takes the food you eat and turns it into energy for you to run and play. One disease that I study is diabetes. Do you know what diabetes is?
My friend has diabetes, and she has to wear a machine on her arm, but I don't know why.
That's a great start. That machine on your friend's arm is called an insulin pump, and it keeps her healthy. Your friend's body works a little differently than yours or mine and needs a little extra help from that machine. What's your favorite activity?
I love to play hockey. I'm a goalie.
Great. And do you know where you get your energy from to be able to play hockey?
Hmm. My mom always makes sure I eat a snack before I go to practice.
That's really good because when you eat food, your body uses it as fuel to play hockey, kind of like gas for a car. When you eat foods that have sugars in them, such as bread or strawberries, your body uses the sugar to make energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But how do I get energy from sugar?
Excellent question. Your body has these tiny sugar fairies that use sugar dust to turn sugar into energy.
There's fairies inside of me?
Well, they're not real fairies, but you can imagine that there's these teeny tiny things inside of you doing this job right now.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. But some people's sugar fairies don't work exactly as they should, and this is called diabetes. There's 2 types of diabetes. The first type kills the sugar fairies, so they cannot use their sugar dust to turn the sugar in your body into energy. Can you think of how we could help someone with this type of diabetes?
Maybe give them more sugar dust, since the sugar fairies can't give it to them.
Exactly. Great thinking. So that machine in your friend's arm gives her sugar dust so she can use the sugar she eats to make energy. There's also another type of diabetes where the sugar fairies can still do their job and give away sugar dust, but the diabetes stops the sugar dust from working. So again, the person is not able to turn sugar into energy. Can you think of how we could help someone with this type of diabetes?
I'm not sure.
That's okay. One way to help someone is to give them medicine that stops the diabetes from taking away the sugar dust's abilities.
This all seems really cool, but why is it so important to turn our sugar into energy?
Well, besides needing energy to get up in the morning and do all the activities you like doing, too much sugar in your body can cause problems for your health. Your body works when it has the right amount of sugar in it, and these sugar fairies make sure that your body always has the right amount. It's like a teeter-totter. You can't have too much or too little sugar, but just the right amount.
That's so cool. I can't wait to tell my mom I have fairies inside of me. Thanks, Dr. Gall.
Hi, Taylor. My name is Dr. Darla Gull. Thank you for joining me today. What grade are you in?
Hi, Dr. Gall. It's great to meet you. I'm in grade 11.
Today, we will be talking about the disease diabetes. What do you know about diabetes?
I know that it causes high blood sugar and people who have it have to take insulin, but I don't know much else.
That's okay. Let's start at the basics. You are made up of trillions of cells, and every cell in your body needs energy to function and keep you alive. Can you bend your arm? When you bend your arm, the muscle cells need energy to contract and create that action. Do you know where that energy comes from?
I know the food we eat gets broken down to produce energy.
That's correct. And do you know where the primary source of energy comes from?
We learned that carbohydrates are the main source of energy for the body in biology class.
Correct, but more specifically, glucose. Carbohydrates are broken down into their monosaccharide glucose through our digestive system, where it can then enter our bloodstream. Glucose needs to enter cells from the bloodstream, but it cannot simply do that. It needs insulin, which is a hormone that you mentioned before. Insulin binds to the insulin receptors on cells, which triggers a chain of signals inside the cell that allows glucose to enter.
That's really interesting, but where does the insulin come from?
That's a great question. Insulin production is a part of your body's blood glucose feedback loop, which helps maintain homeostasis. Have you learned about feedback or homeostasis in biology class?
I have no idea what either of those words mean.
No worries, I'll give you an analogy. What would you do if you got too hot in your car?
I would turn the air conditioning on.
Exactly. And what would you do if you got too cold?
I would turn the heating on.
Exactly. This is very similar to the blood glucose feedback loop, which helps your body maintain homeostasis regarding your blood glucose levels. Homeostasis is your body's ability to maintain a stable internal state, and one way it does this is by feedback. In the blood glucose feedback loop, when your blood glucose levels are high, your pancreas secretes insulin to lower it. And when your blood glucose levels are low, your pancreas secretes glucagon to raise it. But for now, let's focus on insulin, since this is the hormone affected by diabetes. Do you know the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
I don't think so.
Type 1 diabetes kills beta cells, which are the cells in the pancreas that secrete insulin. How do you think this would affect someone?
Well, without the cells secreting insulin, the glucose wouldn't be able to enter the cells. And then does that mean glucose can't be turned into energy?
Yes, exactly. And their blood glucose levels would rise because of that. And to treat this, we give people insulin, just as you said in the beginning. With type 2 diabetes, the problem is with the insulin receptors. The receptors become desensitized to insulin. Thus, when insulin binds to the receptor, it does not send signals to the cell to allow glucose to enter. This would cause the same problems that come with type 1 diabetes, including elevated blood glucose levels. How do you think we could help someone with type 2 diabetes?
I'm not sure, but I don't think you would give them insulin because they have enough insulin. They just can't use it.
You are exactly right. So one way we can help someone would be by giving them medicine that can resensitize the insulin receptors. Lifestyle changes such as healthy eating and more exercise can also help your body process glucose more effectively.
What happens if this goes untreated?
With both types of diabetes, the risks of not treating them include your cells having a lack of energy because they're not taking up glucose, and high blood sugar, which can lead to a variety of health problems.
Thanks, Dr. Gall.
Hi, Ron. I'm Dr. Darla Gall. Thanks so much for joining me today. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Dr. Gall. I'm a second-year biology major at the University of Waterloo.
Very cool. Well, today we're here to talk about diabetes. I'm sure you're familiar with the two main types of diabetes.
Yes, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where a person's own immune cells mistakenly attack beta cells in the pancreas, while type 2 diabetes is developed based on genetics and lifestyle choices, and it causes your insulin receptors to become resistant to insulin. In both cases, this causes high blood sugar.
That was an excellent explanation. You mentioned that type 2 diabetes is developed, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. Studies have identified at least 150 DNA variations that are associated with the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Each person has some variations that increase risk, while others reduce risk. And then on top of that, health and lifestyle factors influence an individual's overall risk of type 2 diabetes. Health conditions that predispose to the disease include obesity, insulin resistance, prediabetes, and gestational diabetes. Lifestyle risk factors include smoking, poor diet, and physical inactivity. So you're right, although genetics do have a role in determining a person's likelihood of developing type 2 diabetes, whether they actually develop it or not depends a lot on their lifestyle choices.
That's very interesting. Insulin resistance is often referred as prediabetes. And to my knowledge, insulin resistance, which is where your body cannot use their insulin effectively, leads to prediabetes, which is where blood glucose levels are high, but not high enough to be diagnosed as diabetes. Is there a way of actually reversing insulin resistance and prediabetes before it tips over to diabetes?
Great question. And the answer is absolutely. Weight loss, increase in activity, eating a healthy diet, and not smoking are all ways to reverse insulin resistance, thus prediabetes as well.
What about after developing type 2 diabetes? What can be done after the fact to control it or possibly reverse it?
There is not a perfect answer to that yet. But to our knowledge today, there is no cure for type 2 diabetes. However, with the right lifestyle changes, people have seen their diabetes go into remission. However, they still remain at a high risk of returning to high blood glucose levels, so they must be strict with their lifestyle choices to remain in remission.
I know the cause of type 1 diabetes is still relatively unknown, but I know predisposition to develop the disease is passed through generations. We recently learned about a family of genes called human leukocyte antigen, HLA complex, which helps the immune system distinguish the body's own proteins from proteins made by foreign invaders, such as viruses and bacteria. Since type 1 diabetes occurs when a person's own immune cells mistakenly attack their own proteins, I would think genes in this family would be responsible for type 1 diabetes.
You would be exactly right. These HLA genes listed here have many variations, and individuals have a certain combination of these variations called a haplotype, which determine the likelihood of developing type 1 diabetes.
So you're saying certain HLA haplotypes are associated with a higher risk of developing type 1 diabetes?
Correct. However, only about 5% of individuals with the gene variants develop type 1 diabetes. HLA variations account for approximately 40% of the genetic risk for the condition. Other contributors include environmental factors and variations in other genes.
Wow, this disorder definitely seems complex. So for the type 2 diabetes, you can prevent it by living a healthy lifestyle, but it seems like we don't know how to prevent type 1 diabetes. Do you think it would be possible to remove the diabetic HLA variations from a person's genome to prevent type 1 diabetes?
That's definitely a possibility, although lots more research needs to be done to determine the specific HLA gene variations that increase the risk. How could you see this happening?
Well, I automatically think of using CRISPR to cut out the bad HLA variations and replace it with good HLA variations. Although this wouldn't give a 100% guarantee of not developing type 1 diabetes, it would reduce the risk by 40%.
And with more research and development of CRISPR, you've essentially 40% cured type 1 diabetes. Thanks so much for chatting with me today, Ron. Thanks so much for tuning in to Got to Know to learn about diabetes. Overall, I was very impressed by each person's understanding of the concept and inquisitiveness, and I hope that you at home learned something from this video as well.